Hello, this is Wyland with the FPV podcast, where we talk about the FPV community and everything we do with our radio-controlled machines. Before we get into the show, I just want to very quickly touch upon our Patreon giveaway. This is a monthly giveaway that we're going to be doing for our Patreon supporters. So we're going to be giving away a lot of great products. So if you're interested in supporting the podcast and being entered into the giveaway, please go over to fpvpodcast.com. That's fpvpodcast.com. Thank you so much for supporting the FPV podcast. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's FPV podcast. As I've mentioned before, we're going to be doing a short little mini-series about long-range flight. Now, I know there's plenty of resources out there talking about long range, but what Elvin's trying to accomplish here is to have a comprehensive guide in which you will know pretty much his entire thought process. That way you can kind of make your own judgment on it, and then you can ask educated questions to kind of gear it towards what you want. So, this is the first episode of this little mini-series. Elvin, what are we going to be talking about today?
We're going to be talking about FPV long range. And what that is that is the distance that you fly and you control. This is not one of the missions. I'm not talking about missions. I'm not going to be talking about waypoints. This is not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the man flying the ship the distance. And at some time, I can understand that there may be a transition from one pilot to another pilot, because on long-range missions, you should have a co-pilot, and he should help you and be there to assist you in case you need water, bathroom, food, whatever it is that, because it can happen. There is some flights that are out over an hour and a half, and it can become monotonous and mentally draining on long flights. So
cool.
That's why you need a co-pilot. That's why what your spotter is for. That's why one of the reasons why they say you need a spotter is to help you with these things in long distance flights.
Okay, cool. So we're going to try to break it up a little bit. We're going to talk about different systems, different types of flying, which Elvin's already talked a little bit about it. And then we're going to dive into the specifics and how to break down your goals. So let's go ahead and dive into the first subject, which is different systems. Elvin, what kind of different systems are we looking at for long-range flight?
Wow, man. There's like 6 right now. There's Dragon Link, there's Schluter, there's Crossfire, there's Open LRS, Range Link. Over the last couple of years, this part of our industry has expanded, and we have a lot more systems to deal with, a lot more systems to understand, and a lot more products to use. And most of it is to our advantage. Some stuff is really difficult to get set up, and some stuff is really difficult to keep running. I've been a Stoth person running Open LRS for like the last 3 years, and it's been a constant hell for me trying to keep a consistent flying ship with the system and being able to get consistent range, which has been for me about 4 miles. And not much more after that, because the system keeps failing. So I decided that I was going to give it one more season last year, trying to get this stuff to work, and it failed on me. So I boxed it all up and shipped it off to a very known pilot who uses it, and I wish him well, because I'm not going back. It's time to move forward. It's what we did last year is we waited, and things have changed. So it was a good wait, but it was kind of unnecessary because the products were supposed to work in the beginning.
All right. So what are we moving towards?
Okay, so I moved toward the Dragon Link, and Dragon Link is the professional. It's just professional grade. It is what we use when you're dealing with movies and systems like that, when you fly and stuff like that. I had I worked on a movie shoot a couple of years ago, and they were running Dragonlink systems. The guy said, "Is there something better?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "There you go. That's why we have it." So Dragonlink has been good to me in the last 6 months, 6, 7 months. Great performance. I never worry about where I'm at or how far I got to fly out. I mean, I've been under 20 miles. So DragonLink is good for 60 kilometers. So I've been happy where I'm at, and I've been very fruitful in the flights that I've had. I have not lost a ship. I have not had to go and put something down somewhere and go looking for it, which is what you don't want. I mean, you got to be prepared. The part of the thing about long range is being prepared in case something happens, so you're not causing any danger to anyone else or their property, because it can be a highly thing. So from Dragonlink, I moved to FR Sky's new system, the R9 system. I'm currently testing that system right now, and we've gone out to 2 miles, 2.5 miles to be exact, on the R9 system. And it's the cheapest of the big systems right now, because it's just, that's how it is. It's $100 for a receiver and the module to go to the back of your Tyrannus or whatever radio you have that have a JR module plug in the back, or Futaba module plug in the back. And you can fly literally 3 miles around your house and not have any issues. And it's very similar to Crossfire, I will say that, because there is some issues going on with the two companies right now, one claiming one thing and one claiming the other. But really, at this time, you don't really have a lot of choice. So you have to make up your mind whether it's the cheaper system, which I suggest if you're going, you're not going looking for the holy grail of long range, which is, for me, 25 miles. If you're not looking for 25 miles, then this is the system for you. If you're planning on flying under 10 miles, under 6 miles, this is the system for you. If you plan on going past that, this is definitely not the system for you. You need to go with more power, more output. And because the R9 is only capable of 1 watt, that minimizes you to 10 miles of distance. Even with the best antenna systems, you're not going to see much more than 15, maybe 20 miles. But you're struggling, and why struggle when you don't have to? And that's part of the thing I'm talking about with these episodes and these systems, is there's no real reason to struggle. A lot of this stuff has already been tested. You just have to go out, build a ship, put it together, and fly each flight as if it's a test for the next flight, right? You're prepping for your next longer flight. And that's what I do. That's what most of my buddies do. When we fly together, we do a lot of prepping for the next flight. So each flight, okay, so today I fly a mile, tomorrow I fly 1.5 miles. You know what I mean? And right. In the same area.
Okay, cool. I think Elvin's going to get more in depth into different types of system in
you have to.
In episode 2, but we're going to go ahead and move on from that discussion. That was just kind of lightly touching it, so that if anybody has any specific questions, reach out to Elvin, and we will definitely try to cover it in the podcast. So let's go ahead and move on to the different types of flight. Now, Elvin is, for this kind of mini-series, is only covering a specific type of flight. So he's talking about FPV flight as opposed to mission flight. But let's go ahead and define those two for anybody who's listening. So Elvin, what's mission flight and how is it different from FPV flight?
Okay, so mission flights are the type of flights that you do where you use waypoints. You're basically letting the system fly itself. What it is it's distance that you want to fly that you know you can't fly physically with the control of the radio. I mean, there's obstacles, whether it's a valley. You know, I got a buddy of mine who flew into a valley, had his ship fly around the valley, and then pop back up over the ridge and fly back to him. And it's beautiful recording video, but he's not flying the ship. In case something went wrong, he would have been in the systems. He wouldn't have had a rescue point. You know what I mean? Unless the system took over. So, and we've seen a couple of systems that didn't take over, and we've lost a couple of my friends have lost their ships. So mission flights are waypoint flights, which is normally what I call. You go out, you figure out where you're going to go fly. You pick it on your iPad or your PC, and you point out where you want to fly. And basically, when you launch, you tell the ship go, and you put the radio down, and you're basically riding along until the point where you lose video and the ship comes back. That is not what I want. I mean, that to me, that's great to do those things, but this is not what this episode is about. This is about us flying the ship, enjoying the flight, gaining the experience necessary to make a longer flight. And each flight is, as I've said before, is a stepping stone for the next flight. And that goes the same with whether I'm flying my Pinata or my quad, you know, whether I'm flying this or that, or my Hardcore 63 or any of the other ships that I have, or my 83 incher, you know, it's me. I like to fly. I love flying. I think it's a real challenge. It's a mental challenge. The longer the flight, the harder it is to fly and to maintain focus into the flight and understand where you're at and where you're at on the planet too, because it kind of sometimes blows some people's mind open. So waypoint flights are not that. This is about long range flights that you do and you use return to home as a safety factor, not as the driving factor of the ship. And that's another thing. So like we talk about ships and return to home systems, and that's part of what you need to have for long range. Flying a mile away from yourself is easy. Flying 2 miles away from yourself starts to get difficult because you don't know what's on the other side of that hill at 2 miles. Flying further than that, you're in danger of putting someone else's property or their life in danger. So you need a return to home system, whether you're using a vector, iNav. There's a couple of other older systems, autopilot, that are out there that you can use if you're using those systems and you have return to home. And you may need it, you know, and being able to test those systems and how they work properly before you need them is very important, because you don't want to go out there and be out sitting at 5 miles and your video starts to fade and it disappears, and you flip a switch and you wait and nothing comes back, or within 5 minutes you don't see your video again. You know, that that's bad. So what you want is you want the system to resolve whatever the problem. So you lose your video, you flip a switch, and the ship can climb back up above and come above the horizon, and you get your picture back. I have seen 2 times that work properly, and then I have seen one where the ship never made it past the hill that it was looking at, you know, 30 seconds before it ran into it, you know. And my buddy was like, I hit the switch, and we waited an hour, and then we went looking for it. And we found it sitting on the hill, you know, It was on its way. It just never made it above the hill first. So it was on top of the hill. And anyway, so that's why you need a return to home system. I mean, if you're out doing this stuff and you're not running a return to home system, you're putting other people in danger. I don't want that. I don't want no one doing that. Um, so yeah, please be smart about this because, like I said, you're putting other people's property and yourself, I mean, themselves in danger of your ship. So let's be responsible adults or responsible pilots and take care of that. Other than that, uh, the systems usually function well. There's a bunch of systems that's been out on the market for like the last 10, 15 years, return to home, and they work. They're they're not the greatest, and they don't have the most features. The Vector has color OSD and return to home and gate mapping and all this other stuff that's crazy. That you could use if you get creative. So some systems don't have those things; they just fly. Like the Easy OSD system. I do use this for shorter than 1 mile flights. It gives me an opportunity to see where I'm at on the planet. I get a GPS location. I can see my speed, my altitude, and my voltage, which is very important when you're flying long distance. Those are your three things those are a couple of the things that you monitor: your speed, your altitude, your battery voltage, and your location with your the longitude and latitude. So
Okay,
that's
cool.
that's what you need to have.
Okay, nice. So obviously we are talking about FPV flight, so let's go ahead and talk about how you should prepare for your first FPV flight. So what's the thought process behind that?
Okay, so here's my thing. A lot of us, when I talk to some of the pilots around the world about doing FPV long range flights, they tell me they don't really look. They don't really go and do what I do. And this is what I do, literally. I go on to Google Maps or Google Earth or one of the map programs, and I pick the area that I want to fly in, and I start looking for power lines. I look for power lines. I look for airport towers, stuff that I could run into, transmission lines, radio stations, because you want to avoid flying in those directions. The less chances of you have of running into those things, the better off you're going to be, and the longer your FPV long range career will be, and less of people watching your stuff burn up on top of a tower. It's happened. A guy some years ago lost a plane, and it ran into one of those big ballpark lights, and psh, and the plane caught on fire from the heat of the lights, and the tower, the top section burned from the fire from the lights and the EPP and the foam, and he had to pay for the lights. I mean, he was smart enough to own up to it, so they didn't have to come looking for it. So the situation wasn't as bad as it could have been because he was being responsible. But I'm sure it could have got a lot more expensive than the $8,000 that it cost him to replace the lights. I mean, he did it, so that's that happens. Anyway, but so to get back to it, each flight is you want to go check the map, you want to check the area, you want to check to see houses, if there's a large subdivision, then there's certain systems that are not going to play an effect or give you the best amount of range if you're flying over neighborhoods. 2.4 to be exact. It's my favorite of the frequencies. 5.8 is great for parks and ballparks and racing, drone racing, but not really for distance. You're kind of limited to about 5K maximum, even with the best of the FPV 5.8 gear, you could see yourself no more than 5 miles and be disappointed because there's a lot of other things that affect water, trees, buildings that all affect 5.8. When you get to 2.4, you get a little bit more penetration. You can fly behind trees for some distance, and you need to be prepared, understand where you're going. So like I go out and I look at the maps. I might even get in the car and drive out to that spot and see, like, here, because we have a lot of trees, they do a lot of clear cutting. This summer, that might be an open field. Next summer it might be a bunch of trees 3-4 feet high and there's no place to land. So you need to go out and check these spots out. Be relentless, because you're doing this for your stuff. You know what I mean? You don't want to destroy your stuff. I've said this once before in the RC field. Once you spend the money is gone. Understand that you shouldn't be out when it happens. You shouldn't be out crying about the amount of money that you put in this plane and it's gone. It should be more about the amount of work you put in the plane and persistence and the things that took place prior to you losing it. That's how I look at it. Each one of these ships, if it disappears tomorrow, there's nothing I can do about it to replace it. It's gone. I was at the beach with this at 2 miles and like butt puckering, thinking, if it goes down in the sand, how hard is it going to be to look for it? And but I was prepared to come home without it, and that's what you need to be prepared to do. Like I said before, you need to check your areas, check the Google Maps, drive that area, look at everything, because subtle things affect FPV and equipment, and when it happens, there's nothing like flying along and everything looks beautiful and then it just goes black and you have no clue what's going on. And you're sitting there praying, I flipped the switch, it's on its way back. It's on its way, and it never shows up. I got a couple of buddies that can tell you about that. And one, he doesn't really care. The other two, they cried for a little while and are in the process of rebuilding the ship. So I think it's just about preparation, being relentless in the thought process of trying to protect your investment and others.
All right, cool. All right, so that's a quick talk about preparing for a flight. Let's go ahead and talk about the type of goals that you should be setting and how to repeat for the next flight. So what should be looking forward to that?
Okay, yeah. Here's the thing with the goals. Like, most of us that are involved in long range, our first attempt is 5 miles. You say, I'm gonna go out and do 5 miles, and it doesn't happen. And you go back out and you try again, doesn't happen. And then you go out again, doesn't happen. So there's really simple ways of really simple things that cause that to not happen. Antennas, you got the wrong antenna. People make those decisions today, not really based on the performance of the antenna or the antenna system. Hey, look, that looks cool. Let me buy that, and they put it on their quad and they expect that they can go 5 miles on it. And really the antenna's propagation or the dB gain, the signal pattern wavelength causes it to not be efficient for what you're using it for. Some antennas are designed for close proximity and some antennas are not. And those are the differences between short range local, proximity antennas and long range antennas. So, like I said before, you want to make sure that you have the proper equipment, and that's what I'm here for. I'm going to help you get to your first 5 mile run, and we should be able to do it consistently before we go to 10 miles, and so on, and moving on through my personal goal for a long range FPV is 25 miles. I think at 25 miles, it's a good hour and a half. It's a good hour and a half, 30, 40 mile an hour cruising and turning around and coming back at less than 1,000 feet. And that's my goal. I hope you guys set your goals. But like I said, 5 miles is usually our big one. And really, it should be a little bit smaller. Like, shoot for 2 miles. Once you hit that, then double it. Then go for 4 miles. And then you'll find yourself on the other side of 5 miles real shortly after that, But it's about persistence. It's about practice. It's about taking the steps. It's about knowing your system, knowing your plane, knowing how to launch it in all aspects. I'm not really good at that. I'm sorry, Stuart. I broke your plane. I had two bad launches in a row, and stuff happens. But yeah, I think the goals are usually 5, 10, 20, and 50 miles. Is some guys. I'm not looking for that distance. I think I'll be a lot happier with 25 miles, and pretty much the system that gets you to the 25 miles will get you 50.
All right,
it's
cool.
Pretty much the same system.
Cool. So on the next episode, what we're going to do is take a deeper dive into the different systems and the gear that you should be looking for to achieve the first mile. So, first 2 miles and then 5 miles. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the next episode. Different gear to get you there.
Right. Whether it's 900 megahertz, 1.3, 2.4, 3.3 gigahertz, and 5.8. We're actually going to try to leave the 5.8 out of it because it's more of a hassle to get to 5 miles with 5.8 than it is to get there with 2.4 or 3.3 or 1.3 or even 900. Even though the picture is very grainy looking, you will have signal for miles.
All right, cool. So that's it for this episode. We're going to go ahead and start preparing. We're going to go ahead and start preparing for the next episode. So if you have any questions, definitely drop Elvin a line over on Facebook, and we'll try to answer those as we go along. This will probably take a couple of months to wrap up this little mini-series, but once we do that, it'll be a great playlist for anybody who wants to listen.
Yeah, you'll be able to follow along and duplicate the systems. I will be doing short little videos talking about ground stations, 2 or 3 minutes, showing you my ground station, what's on it, how I built it, and I will be posting parts list on how to do those things, and so that you can duplicate that same system I have.
All right, sounds good. So that's all we're going to have for this episode, everybody. Hope you enjoy your day and keep on flying.
Keep on flying.